All right, this is the VR assignment for SI659 2025. All right, so due in a week, and the assignment is going to be structured as the previous assignments in two parts. So this one will focus on building an environment, supporting locomotion, and adding an avatar, first-person avatar. So probably just say avatar. So in this first part, we will create this VR environment. Pay attention to this paragraph. So as before, we want to do this based on an example, set a goal. So before you get started working on the assignment, doing any of the tasks, think of what you want to, the scene that you want to build and what it should feel like in virtual reality. I gave examples of campfire scene, torchlight, and like designing dark environments rather than daylight environments, but there's a lot of things that you could do. So first task is to create this virtual environment consisting of a foreground, midground, and background. It's very important to me that you understand the concept of building these experiences in layers. That way you can create a good kind of mix and will probably be more likely to achieve immersion and ultimately presence depending on the interactions, I would say. But in this first part, we'll focus primarily on the environment building. So thinking about the 3D characters, light, shadows, and sound. For each of these, thinking what goes in the foreground, background, midground, and various tips throughout here. So yeah, pay attention to that. Then we'll add locomotion. So at this point, I think you'll have like a relatively large virtual environment, maybe larger than the physical environment available to the users. So you need to think about how they can navigate in the scene. And for that, we have locomotion. So the locomotion sample scene from Oculus, if you remember, we tried this out in a lab a long
Oh,
time ago, and I used controllers here, and so you basically have like teleporting to these different kinds of areas, and can of course look around and have snap turns. And it would be nice to try to replicate some of that behavior. The teleport building block is still a bit more limited than the things they did in this locomotion sample scene. So you could also inspect the locomotion sample scene and try to incorporate some of the behaviors, potentially prefabs that you should have when you create a Meta all-in-one SDK scene and import the interaction SDK samples. Then you would see the locomotion examples. Anyway, that's that. And we also want to add a first-person avatar. This is something you've learned in Lab 6. Here we have created kind of like these the first-person avatar. We were playing around with the scene, and yeah, it's telling you which path to choose. And then this is the avatar. We did the mirrored avatar in that lab. So I created a scene where I put in all the 32 avatars. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. It's also one that looks like an alien or something. And I found mine that way. I think for me, I like 19. And so maybe you'll find something that fits your scene. It's really a first person avatar. So basically, when you look at your hands, when you grab objects, maybe next week, or maybe even this week, it's really easy with some of the building blocks. But it's not required. We don't have interactions in this assignment. What is required is that in order to achieve the A, I want you to actually record this virtual reality experience on a virtual reality headset. So, for example, the Vis Studio would record on a headset. You have to figure out how to copy the files from the headset. Once linked via USB, you can access the files, share the media, and then access the files and figure it out. You can find probably Google and find more information or ask on Piazza if you really struggle. But it should be relatively straightforward to get the files off the headset and record ideally on the headset. Finally, the task 5, it's in the A to A plus range, and we noticed that not all of you aim for the A plus, but some do, and so it's an important task. So adapt a previous 3D scene for VR. So from your previous 3D assignments, pick a scene, and now you want to convert the camera to an XR camera rig. You want to provide locomotion where necessary, probably implement a few teleportation hotspots, or think about other ways to navigate. Think about whether it should be life size. Think about starting location for a VR user, how to guide them through the experience, and just like thinking about what changes could be necessary to make this a VR experience. Well, for the AR version last week, I asked you to also take a 3D scene, make it an AR scene. You probably had to make a number of compromises around the corner with the physical environment. Now, in VR, you have a lot more freedom, and so it could be very interesting to explore different perspectives, different scale, not even one-to-one scale, maybe even larger scale, be like a miniature, be like a tiny person in a big world, all those kinds of things. So it could be a bit of fun. Try to be creative, and yeah, claim your A+ by finishing this assignment in a strong way. There's a few resources here, otherwise uploaded to the VR folder as a new folder in the shared folders, and it should be all good. We look forward to your solutions. Please use Piazza if there are any questions. Otherwise, I think should be all good. I think the Unity terrain stuff, I actually have a video from my old playlist here.
So in this video, I'm going to show how to create a terrain.
I might actually import that into the new
go
playlist
to
as
Window,
well.
Terrain Example,
And because this is really focused on terrain,
let's check where the
it is
camera
Unity 2020 though. We're using 2022, so it might look a little bit different now.
It's actually quite fun to just
But
like
you can see me
draw
like
it and
paint the terrain. I think it's
a
pretty fun to create
texture.
like this little snow world, mountain world, and I think I later also added some trees.
So I'm not so exactly
here you can
happy
see I
where
added
the
some
player
trees.
is
These are painted
starting.
trees.
But I will say
It actually really creates an
I
interesting
love
experience. I was using the
what I
Mixed Reality
created
Toolkit
here.
at this
But I
time.
don't
We are
like the
now
starting
using the
location.
Oculus
So it is
on
too
one
bumpy
SDK or the Meta
where
on one
the
SDK,
player
but
is, and
still
I actually really haven't figured
kind of cool.
that part
So
out
I
too
linked
much.
that
I'm
video.
gonna stop here for a second.
In case you
Let's see where
struggle
the
with the
player
terrain
is.
component, it's actually really fun as a
Oops, I
midground
probably
to
pressed
background
play again, and I'm sorry.
kind of
it took
design tool. All right, so good luck with the assignment, and reach out on Piazza if you have any questions.